If you've been following my video series about WordPress and Bootstrap using Live Canvas to edit your pages with code, you will notice that you can do a lot as a no-code interface. You can click add section, you can put things in, you can edit things, configure things with no coding experience. But I want to try to convince you that you should be comfortable writing some HTML. I know for some, code writing can be intimidating. And partly that's the fault of the community. It can be complicated. It can go as complicated as you like, but I believe you can do this. I believe almost anybody can, and furthermore, I believe you could love doing it, and that it's one of the most enjoyable things you can do. I also want to show you right now that I'm not saying you should learn to write HTML. I'm not saying that you're just going to sit down and like blank page create this thing. Instead, you're going to be able to find examples, manipulate them, edit them to do what you want. And so let's just dive in. Okay, picture-in-picture time. Here's where we're going to be coming back to this tab. It's just an HTML file on my desktop and the words hi there, just sitting there. Fascinating. First reference I want to show you. The internet has probably a billion websites that'll teach you about HTML on the surface level. I mean, if you go view page source, any page could teach you about HTML. This is not a helpful thing, but Moz is, I believe that's mozilla.org, developer.mozilla.org. I'm on a page here that is at HTML element reference. Now, you could probably read about all this in one sitting, but I would tell you that like a lot of these things I've never actually used before. Some of it because it's new, some of it because it's old, some of it because it's esoteric and you just never need it. I believe 20% of the elements on this page will make up 90% of the code. So this is a reference. You're not going to come here to get started. They do have an HTML basics. They do have a getting started. This could be a way to go if that's your learning style. I prefer to just jump in. We're going to come back to this tab. Another great place to learn about HTML is right from the Bootstrap docs. So you can come in here, you can copy paste these things. I think that this gives you way more versatility as a developer instead of just being able to add sections through Live Canvas through the blocks and sections I predefine or that come with Live Canvas or Ninja. But you know, right here, you could just go into the code editing and put some stuff in, start editing these things. So we're going to do a bit of that. I thought as a fun exercise, we could build this podcast list. This is the Scott's Bass Lessons. If you ever want to learn bass guitar, this is a thing you will come across. This is a pretty common pattern that you would see on the internet. You've got a list of content entries that probably will have one template. So there's, in Bootstrap, we would call this a card. If I go back to the card thing, scroll to the very top example. This is what Bootstrap is calling a card component. So it's got an image and it's got a title and it's got some text and it's got a button. And all of that is constrained in a box with a border. Now, that was the visual description. If we look at the code, there's a div. I'm not sure where the word comes from, but that is just like a container. It comes with some default properties that the browser is going to assume for it, and you can change them. This one has a class. A class is a thing that we add to it that we can then select it. We want to only select divs with a specific class, in this example, card. This one has an inline style. You're going to meet some pedantic developers who tell you never to do this. My rule is if it's something you're going to have happen on the site more than once, it goes into the CSS style sheets. If it's just happening in one place, you can get away with a little inline style here and there. So they've used indenting. So we're done looking at that selecting div. Here's the closing div. Indenting is for humans. That's for you to look at this and really quickly understand the structure here. There's also like this scroll bar shows us that a line of code is going off the page. That's also for us. In your code editor, you can allow that to wrap or not wrap. It's up to you. But the indenting here is for you. Then we see at the next level, there's two things. There's an image and then there's another div. And then there's more indenting within that div. Here we have an image. The source is ... That's just developer shorthand for, hey, we don't actually have an image there. We just want you to like assume there's something in there and we're just skimming over it. Just like if there's a quote and you like the beginning of the quote and the end, you're going to cut parts out. You just have to replace it with the dots. This has its class. Now it starts with card and then it has image top. That does suggest that there will be other ones. There is a horizontal over here. So card dash image dot top. This is a really fascinating subject in web development. It's just naming things, your classes. There's nothing magic about the word card except that in the style sheet, that person has also written it there. You can call your classes whatever you want, as long as it doesn't start with a number and probably a few other exceptions. And so in calling this card, they also want you to know that this class for images really applies to a parent element of card. So they're doing some namespacing. Naming things is an art unto itself. If I'm in code writing mode, I'm not a very good namer, but if I sit and really think about naming using the other side of my brain, then I can do okay. Alt is the alternative description for screen readers. Then we have a div with a class of card body, and within that we have a card title, we've got card text, and then just a normal button. It's notable to me that they've closed the paragraph tag here. You don't always have to do that in HTML5, but if they did not do that, then you would probably be starting another paragraph here for this button. So I'm only bringing that up to point out, one, that's the size of fact that you're going to have to remember about writing HTML. There's just a bunch of little gotchas like that. You'll forget these things sometimes. I for sure do. And I also wanted to point out that to build this exact same thing, instead of having that closing P, you could have had an opening P here. And that would have been like valid and probably the exact same result. Maybe you'd end up with a little bit more spacing under the button. So there's all these little gotchas. There's lots of different ways to do the exact same thing, even within a predefined system like Bootstrap. Okay, so that was supposed to be a helpful overview of just like, here's a pattern. We looked at it visually. We looked at the code. Let's just copy the code here. And I'm going to go to Sublime Text. So here I've got my little cheat sheet. I'm going to resize this. 80-20 rule. Let's see how much we can do. Here's my empty file. I just took the liberty of just having it start with the Bootstrap CSS, the Bootstrap JavaScript, but the rest is like just default. And there's the word hi there. It is notable that without the paragraph tag, it's just on the page. It is working. In the early 90s, this is what the internet was like. We would just have text running from one side of the screen to the other, and we called that good enough. I'm going to paste in this thing here. Instead of this broken image thing, I'm going to put in a placehold it space. A little text expansion just happened there. Let me know if you want a video about that. But anyway, that's from a service called Placehold It, where they have these images you can just like use as a placeholder. And this is where, you know, we could change that card title. So if I go back to my page, hit refresh, I've got the thing. Now I'm going to get rid of the style that is setting a max width. We're going to put it back on in a sec. Now it fills the screen and it's respecting the aspect ratio of this image, which is kind of cool. Okay, so I am going to just put that width in there again. I'm actually going to, you know, I'd prefer to call it max width in this case. And yeah, here we go. We got a card title. So we're trying to reproduce the Scott's Base Lessons thing. I think they had 4 across. Is that right? 4 of these things across. So let's go back here and I'll hit save. Go refresh my thing. Oh, they're wrapping. That's not what we want, is it? Okay, so I'm going to do one more handy little thing here. I'm going to just split my screen and get that Scott's Base Lessons on here. Okay. So we want these things to be in columns. So let's go edit that code a little bit. Now, I'm also noticing that on SBL, there is a maximum width that's happening. So if I get rid of some of this stuff, like you can see that it's constrained to like the middle, I'm going to guess 1200 pixels of the screen. So what I want to do is I'm going to get a little closer here. So I'm going to write a div. You don't need to do this. You don't need to write code. You could probably find something that works, but this isn't hard. I'm going to give this BG dark. And let's close that div. And then within that, I want the thing constrained to like the middle portion of the screen. You'll notice I didn't write div here. I just wrote dot container and hit tab, and it automatically created the rest of that. That is because I'm in Sublime Text. I have something installed called Emmet. It used to be called Zen coding. Could have the other way around. And now we want columns. So we have dark background. We've got a container constraining to the middle. Now we're going to need columns. So to have columns, we need to first start with a row. So dot row, expanding that, and then dot col for column. I'm going to also add a little padding on the vertical here, py4. Now I've got my column. What I'm going to do is, the column is the part that's going to repeat, and I do like a little bit of white space between my things here. So I'm going to, since these are all the same right now, delete these, cut that, and paste it within my column. I'm doing this pretty fast. Sometimes when people watch me code, they're like, oh, do this for 10,000 hours. But really, it is fun to do, and the more you do it, the better you get at anything. Now, I'm happy with this. I'm ready to start reproducing my column here, but I'm going to take an extra step here. And I know that once I have like a lot of actual content in here, it's going to get a little fuzzy where things are. I'm going to add a code comment here. So that notation for that is like this. It's the dash bang, sorry, opening bracket, dash, bang, dash, dash. I'll say it right eventually. And then it ends with dash, dash, close thing. So I'm writing call there. I could do one for like card as well, but like to me, this is the way that I want it. I don't over markup the stuff. Now I'm going to add more columns. So Command Shift V is how I'm keeping it from messing up my indenting. I'm going to do enough for 2 columns. So what happens now? Go back to splitting this a little bit different. Hit refresh. And things are happening. I've got all these columns, and it's automatically wrapping at some point, and it is not what I want. So we're going to need to fiddle around with it a bit. This is a little bit by design, I will admit. Okay, so what are we going to do to start managing some of this stuff? Well, first thing I want to do is to manage the space below these things. So I'm going to come in here. And every time there's a column, I want there to be a little bit of space at the bottom. So I'm going to do Command, I think that's Control. I don't have labels on my keys. I'm doing Select All, basically. And so I've selected everything that's column, and I'm just going to go in there and just type padding bottom 4. Let's do that. And now I'm going to come over here, hit refresh. I've got that spacing. And the dash 4 is, you may remember from the Bootstrap video, it's just multiplying a default spacer. That's one that I like for between elements by default. If it's between sections, I tend to go to 5. It just so happens to be pretty even with the space between these columns. So I'm happy with that. I could have also used margin. I could have also put the padding on the card itself. Lots of different ways to achieve the same result. Okay, next thing I want these videos, or these things, to be 4 across on the biggest thing. And you'll see on Scott's base lessons, it's now at 1, but over here it's at 3, and then it's at 4. Okay, let's make some of this happen. Okay, first, let's just care about the largest screen. I'm going to start modifying this class that says call. Because I did the Command Shift G to select all last time, I'm going to do it a different way this time. So I'm selecting pretty specifically. I know that there's no other columns on this page. I want to be mindful that I'm not going to select something that's going to affect everything else, but now I'm just going to do Command D on a Mac. I think it's Control D on Windows. And again, I have cursors everywhere. You'll notice like the typing cursor spot is in multiple spots. Let me just take a moment. I did have a tab ready for this. So in Sublime Text, there's a page for how to do that. Visual Studio Code has one as well. I prefer Sublime for mostly uninteresting reasons. If you use that for free, it's going to ask you once a day if you want to buy it. That could be annoying. I do pay for it. VS Code is made by Microsoft, and it's not as fast. They're going to add AI stuff. I don't know if I trust some of the direction Microsoft is going with technology on the whole these are loosely held opinions. I'm not, it's not hill to die on for me, but anyway, they both have multiple cursors. They're both excellent tools that I could use all day. Okay, so let's do some stuff here. So I'm going to do this from memory, and I could be wrong about this. So let's do call MD, and we'll do 3. But Arlie, isn't it 4 across? It is. Or watch me get it wrong. Ta-da! By adding that class, I have done a couple very specific things. One, Bootstrap has 12 columns. You don't see them. It's just like invisible system that all of the elements that they have should be able to work within a divisible system that works within 12. So you could have 4 across, and they're using 3 columns each. You could have 3 across, they'll use 4 columns each. You could have 2 across, they'll use 6 columns each. That's the kind of math talking that I'm probably not doing correctly. So I could do that without the MD. So call -3, and we're getting the exact same result. When I add the MD, what I am saying is on medium-sized viewports and up, do this. Bootstrap is working from a mobile-first approach on their code. So if you ignore all of the media queries, which are like if statements in CSS, it's going to make it be 1 column probably, and it's going to look great on your mobile device. The traffic on your websites right now is probably mostly mobile. So the media queries or if statements are saying, if you're on a bigger screen and up, do the following. So medium screens and up are going to do this. So let's do one more thing here. I'm going to select this text, and let's do it the hardest way possible. Find, oh, I want find all. I've never done this before. Quick find all? Well, hey, that selected them all. Let's just live with that. Okay. What's going on here? Am I not on the right thing? Oh, I'm scoped into that thing there. Okay. Okay, so we're going to do 4, and then do call LG for large and 3. I'm going to show my work in a second. So we're still on 4, but because we're on a large viewport. Scroll down to medium. Oh, the spacing's changing. There's medium. So now we're getting 3 across and then 1. So let's do something else here. I want to get rid of that max width stuff now because the columns are managing all the width stuff for me. So I'm selecting it with the space. Let's go find. Is there a find all? This is interesting. Well, okay. I did find in open files and folders, find that, oh, I want this thing here. So I'm going to hit copy, paste, and I'm going to replace it with nothing, replace, and it's like, do all 8 in one file? Yes. So I hit save there. So now we no longer have that max width thing happening, and so it's letting it fly, and it's centering. Then we go to 3, then we go to 4. That's pretty easy. I hope that you have the confidence that, like, with a little practice, you could learn some of that stuff. Now, I typed some things there out of my brain about just knowing Bootstrap classes, the Lego bricks that are in that collection. It's call for column. Then there's the viewport of, like, I used medium and large. There's an XL. There's a small. And then I used the number, just knowing this 12 column system. That is in here in the Bootstrap docs under layout, grid. No, that's a new thing now, I think. Well, it's got the calls. Yeah, this is the right spot. What am I thinking? I was confused by columns. Maybe this is where they have more information. There's a new, so these columns are working with something called Flexbox. It used to be with floats originally. Now it's Flexbox. They also have a thing for the new grid layout, which, to be honest, I haven't played with very much. I feel like Flexbox gives me everything I've ever wanted in my whole life, so don't need it that often. Anyway, here we are. The documentation is great. It's showing you call with small, medium, large, extra large, extra large, above 1400 pixels. Okay, here's the really critical point that I want to make to you. So I am hoping that by now that you are somewhat convinced that you would be able to manage this level of code editing. So you're going to have some images, you're going to have some text, you're copy pasting this code, maybe from Sublime Text into Live Canvas. Then like from there, you would use the live canvas editor. Um, what I would actually do is like go find that, like insert something with a section that has an image and then look at that code. I think it's lc-helper equals image. So like that's an example of a piece of code that I don't know for sure is right, but like I would go find that and then I would add it to all these like so, equals image. And then when I copy paste this into live canvas with WordPress, I would then be able to click on all those images and select an image from WordPress. So I hope that you're feeling somewhat comfortable that you could start to do this kind of thing. The reason I think it is so important is really demonstrated here with this Bootstrap, this podcast example that we're dealing with here. If you needed to do this in Live Canvas, you would probably end up making a block called podcast or something like that. And it would be this code here in the block. You'd have like, what is it? Editable equals rich on these things here so that you can put that block in and then like click on the text and just like edit it. You'd have editable equals rich here. You'd have what LC helper equals button or something like that. So you could select the URL. You'd be able to edit this text. You'd be able to change that image all with that block. That'd be the live canvas way to do it. It's like Elementor or Divi or any of these other things. The problem is if you had to do 100 podcast episodes, you're going to be like, you have to create all these rows because like the row and the column, that's going to be section level. And then your block is going to be this card. So you're clicking these things, then you're like, click that, click a thing, you're clicking around, choosing the thing, type your alt text. You click this, you type. You click this, you type. Click this, select the URL, then you're doing more typing. You're going to do all of that times 100. That's going to be at least a minute's work 100 times. If you could do that at the code level, like it could just be so much faster. It would almost be just as quick to make one of these as it would be to make 100. Now, the one place where this kind of falls apart possibly is you're thinking about like, how do you change the card titles? How do you change this text and the buttons? Like it's still the typing part there. But if you really get to know your code editor, there are tricks. Okay, I'm going to make an example of how I would pre-populate those in a code way. And this is almost like a Sublime Text overview or using multiple cursors. Anyway, I've written a number of like the datums, the 6 items that need to change on every one of these cards. So I've got the image URL, I've got its alt description, I've got its title, I've got its description, button text, and the URL that it's going to go to as a page. Now, I'm going to be doing this in Sublime Text. You might start with like a spreadsheet. In the past, I've often worked with teams where there are non-coders who are managing the content. They're working with clients to create what we called copy decks. That could be a Word document. It could be a spreadsheet, whatever you want. But here, let's just imagine I'm going to have 8 sets of this. So first, I'll just copy and paste this 8 times. And we'll just do that. Now, the content's going to be the same, so we're just going to go ahead and mix that up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of the image URL, and I hit Command arrow to jump to the end of the line. And now I've got my cursor at the end of every image, and I'm just going to do Command Shift P. I have a plugin in here called Text Pastry, and I'm going to do, I'm going to add numbers 1 to 8 on every one of those, and I'm going to do that again on every one of these. You didn't need to see this, like I could have definitely built this example before, but I just wanted you to see sort of the power of like when you get to be really familiar with a tool, how powerful like it can be for just speeding up your whole life. Okay, so we have image one, there's the 1, we've got a 1 there, that 1 there. And like if I scroll down, you'll see 8 on all of these things. And so now I'm going to take all these image URLs, I'm selecting that, that label thing again, and I'm going to do Command Shift arrow to the end of the line and do Command X. So now in my clipboard, I've got 8 of those URLs. So now I'm going to go to my other document here, and I'm going to just select. Now, I've just hit Command Shift G again. And I can see at the bottom corner, I have 8 selections. So I'm feeling really good. I know that the length of this string that I'm replacing is the same. So as I paste, I can now see image 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we're just gonna like step and repeat. I'm gonna speed this part up for you. Okay, so I've just copy pasted all of those 6 pieces of data into this document. When I come back here and hit refresh, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I definitely broke those images, but the advantage there is you can see the alt tags are in there. And if I hover over these, like I can see this is linking to page 5, this is linking to page 1. So if this is going to be a significant part of your job is building sites and pages and things like this, I highly recommend that you get comfortable at least editing some HTML. You don't need to do all the nerdy stuff that I just showed you, but I wanted to open your mind to the idea that if you invest a little time into the learning curve of some of these tools, you can really accelerate your process. Live Canvas is great. The no code ability to just edit pages is awesome for sure. But I don't want you to have to like do the grunt work of manually creating all these objects if with just a little bit of learning, you'd be able to do this stuff at like such an incredible scale just by using some modern code editing stuff. So I wanted to introduce you to it. It is a learning curve. I call that sublime parkour, where you have the multiple cursors. You're making really good selections. You know, you're doing all this pasting. I have made some amazing mistakes in that, but you could just undo and start over and things like that. So I want you to feel more comfortable with HTML. It's such an awesome tool. I want you to feel more comfortable with a code editor that will do everything you want it to. There's a lot to this. If you want to see more about Sublime, ask questions in the comments. I'll make another video about this. I don't mind. And if you even love making websites half as much as I do, I think it would just be really worth your time. And yeah, you could do this. Anybody could do this. Anyway, if you're starting from this video is for people starting from scratch. If you already know some of this stuff, I hope you're just pumped that somebody else shares your passion. All right, thanks.